Good evening and welcome along to Business Today. Many thanks for joining us. I'm Joram Ssonko with Winnie Wins and Akauti in sign language, and we're coming to you live from Plot 42, Nile Avenue. But first, a look at our top stories.
In Business Today, the Minister of Energy insists that the lower power tariff can only be achieved gradually. Telecom companies urge policymakers to lower taxes imposed on mobile money transactions. Legislators task the Ministry of Energy to address the surplus electricity, yet 70% of Uganda is in total darkness.
And now, Uganda manufacturers are demanding for a power reduction as the Uganda Manufacturers Association members, who up till now account for at least 70% of Uganda's electricity use, have their tensions lifted owing to a dialogue between them and the Energy Minister that addressed all issues relating to the manufacturing sector that were limiting the uptake of electricity. Now, among these was the reduction power cost to 5 kilowatts per hour, which the Minister assured will be implemented gradually. We have more in this report.
The manufacturing sector has continued to show reasonable resilience in terms of recovery from the global economic distortions caused by COVID-19 pandemic, which were worsened by the Russia-Ukraine war, as evidenced by the manufacturing sector posting 2.7 trillion shillings revenue contribution at the end of Q2 financial year 2022-2023, representing 22.65% of the contribution. However, these manufacturers have expressed their dissatisfaction with the minister, highlighting high power tariffs and unreliable power, which cause blackouts as the major impediments to the industrial growth.
To air out our challenges, especially to Meme, because without power you can't develop. I have a plot in Namamve, which I'm trying to develop, but because of challenges of power, you find most of the time things are taken away. You know, it is easy to vandalize a place when there is darkness.
As you said, the cost of power with using generators is 5 times the UMEME rates, and we're operating generators for products like soap and products like plastics, where if a machine shuts down, whatever's in process is destroyed. It needs to be recycled. There's a lot of cost for us. Our problems are the same that have been raised, so I won't repeat them. We're looking forward to corrective measures. We're looking forward to the 5 cents.
It is on that note that they demanded assurance from the Energy Minister, who elaborated how this will play out.
The interruptions really cost us as manufacturers. We're here in Arua, we're in Tororo, we're in industrial area of Ugologa as Uganda Bati. And most of the issues that we have is power cuts that happen within the production process.
In her submission, the minister said that the lower power tariff can be achieved, though gradually. She asserted that the 5 US cents was a presidential directive that she can never disregard, and thus they should await for the announcement from the Electricity Regulatory Authority.
This cannot be done abruptly because it will cause some shortfall, and my system or my industry is a self-reliant industry. I sell electricity to survive. So I cannot implement the directive abruptly, and I have been working with the president on this. So we are reducing slowly, and very soon the regulator who is mandated to reduce, to announce tariffs, will be announcing a tariff that will not be 5 US cents.
In that same regard, she issued a strong warning to manufacturers linked to vandalism, as the same scrap they buy from vandals is from transformers and transmission lines that distribute them the electricity they so need.
Encouraging vandalism because they are creating market. And let me use this opportunity to declare that once I get you, I will catch the truck entering your factory. That will be the end of your factory. I will close it because you are creating a bad name for the rest of the members of Uganda Manufacturing Association. I get a truck of illegal scrap in your premise. I will close it.
Ultimately, the chairperson Uganda Manufacturers Association suggested that full implementation of economic industrialization will revamp some of ministry's programs like the Rural Electrification Association, which targets their audience.
There is a worry of surplus power, underutilization of the current installed capacity. However, we think that if we did some of the major projects like OR and others, in the next 5 years, we shall not have excess power. If, I know my colleague will talk about this, if you have, I know you have disbanded rural electrification scheme and taken it back to the ministry, but if in the end of the project that you bring along, you prioritize industrialization. Because what happened in the rural electrification, they were looking at social impact. They were looking at what? Social impact. They were looking at schools, they were looking at communities, they were looking. Factually, you had to invest and go on a rebate. And sometimes that is the kind of capital you needed to be invested in machines. And they were telling you to invest it in a power line. We have many such cases, including myself.
Lastly, manufacturing like the National Development Plan 3 framework lack a meaningful, predictable tax policy and tax administration regime to spur heavy investments into the manufacturing that continue to elude Uganda. Runa Nahabwe, Smart 24 TV, Business Today.
Now, in order to boost financial inclusion in Uganda, policymakers have been encouraged to rethink lowering the taxes imposed on mobile money transactions. The experts claim that taxation has a huge impact on affordability of mobile services and that this needs to be addressed. We have more in this report.
To meet the 16.2 trillion revenue target for the 2018-2019 fiscal year, the government introduced a 1% tax on mobile money deposits, withdrawals, transfers and payments. When the Excise Duty Act came into force on July, many Ugandans soon discovered that mobile money transaction had become more expensive. According to Kennedy Kipkemboi, a senior mobile money regulatory specialist at the GSM Association, this has to be addressed because it hinders the promotion of financial inclusion in very many African countries.
Taxation, because again, taxation has a huge component on affordability. Sector-specific taxation, like I presented earlier, have really impacted the affordability of handsets and, by extension, financial services in many countries. When it is not done correctly, there's an increase in the cost of using some of these services. And so what a majority of countries are doing, especially in Africa, is they have exempted sector-specific taxation for the mobile money sector.
A public opinion survey of nearly 3,000 people was conducted 2 weeks after the introduction of the tax revealed that of the 93% of the respondents who had used mobile money in the last 6 months, 44% transacted less in July and 47% stopped using mobile money completely after the tax was introduced.
I don't want an impression that the mobile money charges are high solely because of tax. No, that is not true. And this only applies, the tax charge only applies to the withdrawal of cash only. If I transfer money from my phone to your phone, there is no tax charge.
You see, he has some point, and I tend to think he has some point, because if you look at the masses, if you look at the 0.5% at the lower transaction level, where we are looking at those people who are financially excluded, it is very not significant. That value becomes only significant for high amount, and that is why now, when you look at the ecosystem, as the value increases, it discourages people. If you can imagine paying that 7,500 to do a transfer. I'd rather walk in, walk out, and meet you over coffee and pay you the money cash.
Mobile money has saved many parents the inconveniences of queuing for several hours to pay school fees at the bank. Therefore, other stakeholders believe that it will be important if government reduces the withdrawal tax.
Some of the interventions that are being looked at, as apart from maybe the regulator might need to look at widening the tax bracket and reducing maybe from 0.5 to a smaller percentage. That is our expectation, maybe 0.2% or 0.3%. And then in the same breath, we are also looking at the costs that we pay to the agent to see whether there is any opportunity for us to rationalize it in order to grow to deepen the financial inclusion. Because at the end of the day, our business is a volume business.
In 2018, mobile technologies and services generated 8.6% of GDP in sub-Saharan Africa, a contribution that amounted to over 144 US billion of economic value added. It is therefore understandable that many governments view taxing digital financial services as a potentially lucrative revenue stream. Pedson Mumbere, Smart 24 TV, Business Today.
Right now, the National Economic Committee continues to interact with various government sectors regarding loan performance. And today they tasked the Ministry of Energy with explaining why there is too much silence when it comes to the country's minerals, as well as resolving the issue of the country producing surplus electricity while many areas remain in darkness. More in this report.
Good morning, Honorable Chair and members.
Just like the previous sectors that have made presentations before the committee over their loan performances, Ministry of Energy has also presented the project it has worked on using the different loans it has so far acquired.
We continue to work on the Isimba hydropower project, and it will be part of the presentation in terms of progress, but where we are working with a contractor to finalize the residual works, but also ensure that the outstanding defects and snags on the project are addressed during the ongoing defects liability period. In the detailed loan performance, we'll give a detail of where the project is. For Karuma, we are at the tail end of the construction of the project, and as we
according to the chairperson of the committee, John Bosco Ikojo, the energy presentation would have been perfect if they had given a summary of each project and how much was used so that it gives them a proper data analysis.
In a detail, we wanted to capture a comprehensive report that entails the financial and physical progress of each and every component of the loan, so that we get to know that the detail of implementation, the projects have been implemented to detail. What we are seeing is purely the summary of each project, of how it has been progressing, how it has been implemented.
The legislators have asked the ministry to break the silence on the country's natural riches because they only hear speculations from different persons, while the ministry tasked with providing information remains silent.
Because you have told us you have done area surveys. Do we have gold deposits in this country worth $12 trillion? And where is this gold? Because why are you keeping quiet if it is there? Where is this gold? Because I saw someone commenting internationally that gold is going to distort the world's economy. And he was talking about Uganda. Where is that gold?
The committee has also tasked the ministry to address the issue of surplus electricity the country produces, yet 70% of Ugandans are in total darkness.
Chairman, the President is on record saying that we are now producing surplus of electricity. But almost 70% of the country still remain in darkness, not connected to power. But we say we are now producing electricity in surplus. Then you wonder that where does the president get such guidance from?
According to lawmakers, the Energy Ministry receives the largest share of loans, but if it does not solve the problems of regular Ugandans, it is pointless.
And when you look at the loan portfolio for the whole economy, energy subsector takes the biggest chunk. So the interest that our budget keeps finance all goes to financing paying interest for the loans that are acquired for purposes of
energy transmission, generation, and distribution. So can't we, the planners, save on this?
We're exporting power to Kenya, Rwanda, and everywhere. But for us, we don't have power. You have even developed one of Chikagati, which is an EC0, which you went and commissioned. I saw you needed more money, I think, for transmission to evacuate, So me, I would want to see a system whereby all these Ugandans, whether he has an active MP or not, but the government.
The state minister, on the other hand, has promised the committee that all the issues addressed will be worked on with all the details as for provided before the report is presented to the House. Sam Lanifa, Smart 24 TV, Business Today.
Right now, Ugandans are embarking on cocoa value addition, whereas cocoa is one of Uganda's largest export commodities after coffee, gold, tea, among others. And according to UEPB, the cocoa production in Uganda has seen a steady increase over the last years, with over 30,000 tons of cocoa beans being produced annually, and that is more of 95% of it being exported to other countries. Let's have more in this report.
Despite the fact that Uganda is well known for exporting the majority of its raw cocoa beans, Uganda actually imports more chocolate than it exports. Uganda imported chocolate worth $2.66 million in 2020, ranking in position 155 as the largest importer of chocolate globally. In the same year, chocolate was in position 282 as the most imported good in Uganda. Most of the chocolate items sold on Uganda's largest stores are imports from other nations, including Brazil, England, Denmark, Switzerland, Belgium, and Turkey. A 100-gram bar of chocolate typically costs roughly 20,000 Ugandan shillings, or slightly more than $5. Gustav Gonget, a Danish resident living in Uganda, has started adding value to the locally produced cocoa as a strategy to reverse the revenue lost in the exports of cocoa beans.
Now, that decline from 105.81 to 81.9 million US dollars is partly a result of Ugandans are beginning to do value addition, adding value to cocoa, which I think is a very good thing for us, because the value of value-added cocoa is much, much higher than the raw beans.
It's ridiculous that we don't, we haven't been making chocolate here, and as you said, a net importer of chocolate. I believe the last figures I have about a couple of years ago is about 700 tons of chocolate imported, when we are perfectly capable of making chocolate here.
More than a century ago, cocoa planting was brought to Uganda, but since the government's emphasis is on promoting coffee, sugar, and tea production, cocoa farming's fortunes have always been inconsistent over time. The crop is anticipated to be grown on over 20,000 hectares of land because most of the farmers are unaware of the markets and its worth in the country.
Get most of the beans from cooperatives in Bundibujo that we work with. Some other beans we do get from Mukono via another supplier. Currently we are working with the cooperatives in Bundibujo that do so-called specialty cocoa. This means that the cocoa is properly well fermented, that the cocoa is traceable down to the farmers, and we pay more for that cocoa, 40 to 50% than one would pay for bulk cocoa. This to ensure that the farmers have a decent living and also to give them the incentive. If Uganda were able to add value to all the cocoa that it produces and simply export all the chocolate, obviously that would be where the real money is. But that's not happening at the moment, and not for the foreseeable future, because Uganda last year exported 35,000 tons of cocoa beans, and even if we were to do 200 kilos a day, that would translate to just a very small percentage of the total cocoa beans produced here. So we would need a much larger manufacturing base here.
Although Ghana and Ivory Coast are the most well-known cocoa-producing countries in Africa, Uganda has a minor but expanding sector with land suitable for the cash crop. The demand for locally manufactured chocolate is strong and expanding, but the director of Uganda Export Promotions Board urged Ugandans to embrace the market as well.
Much as we have also started exporting the value-added cocoa. I think Ugandans need also to embrace consuming the value-added cocoa in this country, because a population of about 45 million people, if a portion of that consumes the cocoa that we add value to in this country, it will give this country a very big boost.
People who know the chocolate appreciate it. We still have to get the word out to more people. Our idea and our original idea was to do import substitution and not so much export.
In addition, he asked the government to emphasize and raise public knowledge of the value of cocoa production in the same level with other nations that produce the crop.
There are countries in West Africa that were doing coffee, and actually abandoned coffee for cocoa, and they are doing extremely well. And I think Uganda is in a better footing to even beat them. Cocoa had not been regulated, but one of the initiatives that government is doing is now putting it under Uganda Coffee Development Authority to be regulated and managed in terms of planting, in terms of storage, post-service handling, the way coffee is handled, and that should be able to give us quite a big leap. Actually, one of the things I would request the government to do is, just like they have added Hass avocado, macadamia, and the cashew nut on the export product list, and supported macadamia and the Hass by providing seedlings at a discounted rate of 70%. In other words, the farmer pays 30% and government pays 70%. The same needs to be applied on cocoa, because its value is very high and very good, and it grows in most parts of this country. The other initiative is obviously the infrastructure. You see, when roads are worked on, when electricity is worked on,
Cocoa is a high-value export commodity with significant economic potential for boosting farmers' income and foreign exchange earnings for the country. According to statistics, cocoa production and export revenue have both been consistently rising. Monica Nabyonga, Smart 24 TV, Business Today.
All right, now the legislators from the Karamoja region have demanded that the two ministers in charge of Karamoja affairs, that is Dr. Mary Goreti Chituntu and her junior Agnes Nandutu, to abdicate their duties for mismanagement of relief items meant for affirmative action for the people of Karamoja.
The MPs who were angry informed journalists that at the peak of famine in 2021, Parliament passed a supplementary budget for 39 billion shillings to help the people on this region who were dying of hunger. 22 billion shillings was meant to buy goods for the locals. 5 billion shillings was used to purchase 100,000 iron sheets, but as we speak, none of the beneficiaries has received anything yet.
Of the 39 billion, I have just said 20 billion was for the procurement of goods. Those goods were distributed. Some of them, of the beneficiaries, have not received those goods. Of the 5 billion that was meant for government to procure 100,000 iron sheets, as we speak today with this breaking story of iron sheets being stolen, none of the beneficiaries of iron sheets in Karamoja region has received even a single iron sheet. Most of my colleagues and members of parliament have lists of beneficiaries that were supposed to receive this. I have mine for Nabilatuk district. None of the people in this list has received those iron sheets. Furthermore, we are also aware that of the goods that were bought, less than 35% of the numbers that were expected are being supplied.
According to the legislators, the iron sheets that were meant for the locals in the disarmament project were found at the house of the minister in charge of Karamoja affairs.
How can iron sheets meant for Karamoja find themselves 300 kilometers away in Bugishu? on top of the roofs of houses, when the people who are suffering there are waiting for them.
These have demanded that the ministers in question step aside as investigations are carried out on them to discover the whole truth about the corruption happening in the ministry.
What we want to assure the people of Karamoja is we shall stand with you and make sure those who are involved in this shall be brought to book. And the ministers who are responsible should take the responsibility. And as a leader, I think the most honorable thing that the minister should do with our colleagues is to step aside.
It is so gross. And so I am saying, if stepping aside is not possible, if it is an option that they cannot take, maybe we disband that ministry because it has lost its purpose.
Following the theft of iron sheets discovered at the minister's residence on Monday, the office of the Prime Minister released a statement reprehending the theft because the iron sheets were intended for the Karamoja's relief, not the Bugisu region. Brenya Katsime, Smart 24 TV, Business Today.
And now Business Today does take a break. We return with more business reports, furthermore, including the coffee court.